September 1965 was a turning point for Arthur Shuttleworth and for Warminster Mystery itself. According to reports, it was not until September 1965, when he saw a UFO from his home, that he became a believer in the phenomenon. Picture Arthur on that September evening, probably reviewing his notes about the mysterious sounds that had plagued Warminster for months. He steps outside his home, perhaps to clear his head or simply to enjoy the evening air, and then something in the sky catches his attention. The details of Arthur's sighting were never fully disclosed, but the impact was immediate and profound. Here was a man who had built his reputation on facts, on careful observation, on healthy skepticism, and yet whatever he saw that September evening transformed him from a curious reporter into a true believer. This transformation had immediate consequences. Local journalist Arthur Shuttleworth was instrumental in making the phenomenon national news, and in 1 year more than 1,000 sightings of unidentified flying objects were recorded. Think about that for a moment. More than 1,000 sightings in a single year in and around a small English town with a population of just 15,000. That's an extraordinary concentration of UFO activity. And Arthur Shuttleworth was at the centre of documenting every single case. Arthur's approach was methodical. He interviewed witnesses, documented their accounts, cross-referenced timings and locations. When strange noises were reported and objects were seen in the skies near Warminster in the late 1960s, Shuttleworth collected a sizable file on these sightings. This wasn't casual journalism, this was serious investigation. Arthur understood that extraordinary claims required extraordinary evidence, and he was determined to build the most comprehensive record possible of what was happening in his community. Now, let's talk about what people were actually seeing. The reports that flooded into Arthur's office weren't just variations of the same thing. The UFO sightings around Warminster displayed remarkable diversity in terms of shape, size, behaviour and appearance. Some witnesses described classic disc-shaped objects, silver and metallic, moving with impossible speed and agility. Others reported triangular craft, sometimes enormous in size, moving silently across the night sky. There were orbs of light that seemed to dance and play in the air, changing colours from white to red to blue to green. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Warminster sightings was their apparent intelligence. These weren't just random lights in the sky. Witnesses reported objects that seemed to respond to human presence. UFOs that would appear when people gathered to look for them, craft that seemed to perform for observers, lights that would flash in apparent response to flashlights or car headlights. This interactive quality of the Warminster phenomenon set it apart from many other UFO cases. It wasn't just about seeing strange objects, it was about experiencing what seemed like deliberate contact or communication. Arthur Shuttleworth's documentation efforts resulted in his first book about the mystery, published in 1967. These reports were collected in a book published in 1967 by the journalist Arthur Shuttleworth called The Warminster Mystery. But this wasn't just a collection of random stories, it was a carefully compiled record of eyewitness accounts of dramatic UFO sightings that had transformed his community. The publication of the Warminster Mystery had an immediate and dramatic effect. Suddenly, this small English town was thrust into the international spotlight. UFO researchers from around the world began making pilgrimages to Warminster, hoping to witness the phenomenon for themselves. But Arthur wasn't content to rest on the success of his first book. The phenomenon was ongoing, and he continued to document every sighting, every encounter, every strange occurrence. This dedication would eventually result in several more books about the Warminster Mystery, establishing him as one of the most prolific UFO researchers of his era. One thing that made Arthur's work so compelling was his background. This wasn't someone looking to make a quick buck off UFO stories. This was a respected local journalist, someone with deep roots in the community, someone whose reputation depended on accuracy and truthfulness. When Arthur Shuttleworth said something strange was happening in Warminster, people listened. The transformation of Warminster from a quiet market town to Britain's unofficial UFO capital wasn't without its challenges. Long-term residents found their peaceful community invaded by researchers, enthusiasts, and curious tourists. Local authorities struggled to manage the influx of visitors, while businesses discovered both opportunities and headaches in the newfound attention. Some residents embraced the phenomenon and the attention it brought. Others were skeptical, viewing the whole thing as an unwelcome disruption to their quiet way of life. This division within the community added another layer of complexity to Arthur Shuttleworth's investigation. He wasn't just documenting UFO sightings, he was chronicling the transformation of an entire community, capturing how an extraordinary phenomena affected ordinary people in their daily lives. But the most significant development during this period wasn't Arthur's books or the media attention. It was the establishment of regular UFO observation sessions that would turn Warminster into a kind of open-air laboratory for UFO research. These sessions, often held on nearby Cradle Hill, became legendary in UFO circles. Arthur would lead groups of researchers and enthusiasts to what he considered the most active observation points around Warminster, and remarkably, these expeditions often produced results. The success rate of these observation sessions was what really set Warminster apart from other UFO hotspots. This wasn't a place where you might get lucky and see something strange once in a blue moon. This was a place where, according to numerous accounts, sightings were almost routine. If Warminster was the heart of the UFO mystery, then Cradle Hill was its beating centre. This modest hilltop, just outside the town, became the focal point for what might be the most sustained period of UFO activity ever documented in Britain. Picture the scene. Dozens of researchers, photographers, and curious observers gathering as darkness falls, equipped with cameras, binoculars, and recording equipment. Arthur Shuttleworth would typically lead these expeditions, drawing on his months of research to position the group in the most promising locations. What happened during these sessions reads like something from science fiction, but it's documented by multiple witnesses, including trained observers and skeptics who came specifically to debunk the claims. They continued to be seen on a regular basis between 1965 and 1977, making Warminster one of the longest documented UFO flaps in history. Let me share some specific accounts from these Cradle Hill vigils. In August 1972, an American journalist named Bryce Bond joined Arthur Shuttleworth for what would become one of the most detailed and compelling accounts of the Warminster phenomenon. Bryce Bond was an American journalist who came to the UK to go UFO spotting with Shuttleworth. He described some unusual experiences which took place on the evening of August 26, 1972. Bond was a professional skeptic. He'd come to England specifically to investigate and hopefully debunk the Warminster claims.